Hey there, my friend. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. And if you choose to subscribe, just know it would mean a great deal to me. With that said, let's get right into it. My name's Jason. There came a moment when I could no longer overlook how my girlfriend had made a habit out of diminishing me, ridiculing where I came from, making me feel insignificant, acting as though I didn't deserve her attention. It had become so ingrained in her behavior that she did it without thinking. Every cutting remark wore down my self-esteem until eventually I knew I had to do something she wouldn't expect. And when I finally made that move, it caught her completely off guard. Kathleen and I came from the same area, a typical working-class neighborhood. We weren't exactly close growing up, not childhood friends or anything, but we knew each other well enough. Her house was just a few blocks from mine, so we crossed paths fairly often. Even back then, she stood out, graceful, pretty, confident. For a short while, we even attended the same middle school. Then things started unraveling at home. My parents fought constantly until they finally split. I ended up living with my dad, which meant relocating to a totally different part of town. It wasn't easy adjusting, but I managed. I still visited my mom occasionally, and on those rare trips back, I'd sometimes catch a glimpse of Kathleen. We never really talked, but we followed each other on Instagram. So in a way, we stayed loosely aware of each other's lives. That was the full extent of our connection. Our interactions never went beyond a polite glance or a social media like, but I always thought she was beautiful. I quietly admired her, had a bit of a crush, honestly, but I never pursued it. Life kept moving forward, distracting me with its own set of priorities. Looking back now, I realize I was more infatuated with the idea of her than the actual person. The truth is, despite all that time passing, we still barely knew one another. As life went on, we naturally drifted onto separate paths. Kathleen took an academic route, left the neighborhood, enrolled in college, and dove headfirst into her studies. Eventually, she graduated and landed a solid job at a major food manufacturing company. She found her direction, and I found mine. I never had much interest in college, not because I lacked ability, but because I didn't see the point in racking up debt when there was a faster track right in front of me. My dad owned a small but steady real estate business. He'd spent years building it, buying, managing, flipping properties, and turning effort into results. As a kid, I'd watch him work, negotiating deals, connecting with people, and transforming bare land into valuable assets. So instead of going the university route, I asked him to teach me the business. He didn't hand me a role or make things easy. He put me at the bottom, made me learn the ropes. Everything from talking to clients to appraising properties and closing deals. I climbed the ladder just like anyone else. Slowly but surely, I earned my place. While others were still grinding through lectures or applying for unpaid internships, I was already making sales, earning commission, and carving out a name for myself. We were both making strides, just in very different lanes. She was climbing the corporate ranks, while I was pounding pavement and negotiating deals. One night, completely wiped from work, I came home needing to decompress. After a hot shower, I sank into the couch and opened up Instagram, just scrolling through stories and posts to unwind. That's when I saw a new story from Kathleen. A simple selfie, well-lit, calm smile. Without giving it much thought, I replied, "Careful with all that beauty. Someone's bound to go blind." Right after hitting send, panic hit me. It sounded cheesy, like something straight out of a bad pickup line. I stared at my phone, regretting it instantly. What if she thought I was being cringy? What if she ignored it, or worse, blocked me? We hadn't spoken in years. The last thing I wanted was to come off as some random guy sliding into her DMs. My finger hovered over the message, ready to unsend. But before I could, she replied. She laughed and wrote something like, "Then go blind," with a laughing emoji. Just like that, the tension disappeared. I couldn't help but laugh. She wasn't offended. She wasn't weirded out. She found it funny. That small moment sparked a real conversation. We started talking about our careers, our old neighborhood, and how wild it was that so much time had gone by. It felt easy, no awkward silences or forced lines. There was a natural rhythm to our exchange. She had this laid-back warmth that made opening up feel effortless. And as we kept talking, I found myself wondering why we hadn't done this years ago. Slowly, our chats became more regular. Then came the casual meetups, coffee, park strolls, deep conversations about dreams, doubts, and everything in between. It felt real. She stopped being just the girl I used to admire from the sidelines and started becoming someone I genuinely liked spending time with. Eventually, I learned she was single. Her college relationship had ended, and it seemed like she was open to whatever came next. I was nervous about making a move, but the friendship we'd built gave me the courage to ask her out. To my surprise, she said yes. That marked the beginning of our relationship. We officially became a couple, and for a while, it felt like we were building something meaningful. Business was booming on my end, clients, income, everything moving upward. She was advancing at work, too. We were growing together, or so I thought. But after we settled into the relationship, I started to notice shifts in her behavior. The woman who used to laugh at my jokes and share intimate moments started making cutting remarks, snide comments about my background, digs at my upbringing. She'd bring up my parents' separation like it was some juicy detail, making light of how I'd bounced between homes and how chaotic my early life had been. These were deeply personal things I had confided in her, scars I didn't show just anyone, and now they were being used for amusement. At first, I tried brushing it off. People say that if you stop reacting, it loses power. I hoped she'd realize how hurtful she sounded. But instead of stopping, the comments only became more frequent, more dismissive. As time went on, those words started to weigh on me. Things took another turn when she got promoted. From that point, the jabs weren't just playful or off-handed anymore. There was a tone of superiority creeping in. It felt like she had started seeing herself as somehow above me. She carried herself like someone superior, more cultured, more successful, more deserving of life's luxuries, and I was merely a supporting character in her story. That's when I decided to stop letting it slide. No more brushing off the digs. Whenever she said something out of line, I began calling it out, directly and without sugarcoating. I made it clear her words were unacceptable. Most of the time, she'd immediately get defensive, claiming she was joking or insisting I was just being too sensitive. But I stayed firm, and gradually, her blatant disrespect started to diminish. Still, that uneasy truce didn't last long. New problems surfaced just as quickly. She began picking fights over the most minor things, even though we weren't even living together. She'd start comparing me to the men her friends were dating, guys I didn't even know, boasting about the luxury gifts they gave, the exotic vacations they took, the luxury cars they drove. Then came the demands, costly, unnecessary requests that didn't fit our budget or our life. And when I said no or tried to explain why something wasn't reasonable, she would lash out. She'd accuse me of not loving her enough, of not putting in enough effort. That pattern became a slow, toxic erosion of our relationship. It felt like I was constantly walking a tightrope, monitoring her moods, adjusting my behavior, trying to keep the peace while silently falling apart. I wasn't thriving. I was enduring. The relationship didn't end all at once. The end came in pieces, long before I fully realized it. But the moment that broke everything happened during one especially bitter argument. She had come over for the weekend, and before long we were fighting again. So routine by then that I can't even remember what started it. But I'll never forget what she said. She brought up my parents' divorce, casually, like it was just another piece of ammunition, and twisted it into something cruel. I froze. I couldn't understand how someone who claimed to love me could use something so deeply painful just to win a fight. That divorce had shattered my childhood. I'd never even spoken about it in detail. But she knew. It wasn't just trivia to her. It was part of the pain I carried with me. and she weaponized it, deliberately, maliciously. It wasn't just tactless, it was heartless. In that moment, I felt like she'd spit on one of the most painful chapters of my life. Something inside me changed. I didn't yell. I didn't try to reason with her. I didn't defend myself. I just went silent. And for the first time since we'd been together, I seriously considered walking away. I nearly ended it that night, but I didn't. Not because I believed things could improve, but because I realized she had grown far too comfortable treating me however she pleased, without facing any real consequences. It hit me then. We hadn't had a real, meaningful exchange in months. If the conversation wasn't centered on her, she didn't care. That argument only confirmed what I had already suspected deep down. Our connection was gone. Respect? Long dead. But instead of leaving immediately, I chose something else. I wanted her to feel what it was like when the person she thought she controlled stopped reacting. I wanted her to experience the silence, the distance, the cold outcome of everything she'd done. Over the next several weeks, I changed. I stopped fighting. I gave up defending my decisions. I let the disrespect roll off without a word. Whatever she said, I responded with calm indifference. No protests, no corrections, no pushback. Not because I didn't care anymore, but because I needed to observe who she really was when there was no resistance. And just as I suspected, she relaxed her guard. I played the part of the loving partner. I pretended I was fully committed, still dreaming of a future together. I went out one day and bought a cheap ring and I proposed. I told her I was ready to make it official. She beamed with joy, parading the ring in front of her friends, plastering the engagement across her social media. To deepen the illusion, I told her the ring was temporary, a placeholder for the real diamond ring that was being custom-made and would arrive before the wedding. That only fueled her excitement. But instead of softening, her behavior got worse. Her tone stayed sharp. She still dismissed my thoughts. She started dictating wedding plans. She even told me my family shouldn't attend in large numbers, saying they were too much. She demanded the final ring had to be diamond, or she wouldn't wear it. She chose Monaco for our honeymoon like she was checking off a luxury wish list, without even asking what I wanted. I nodded, played along. She wanted the wedding date moved up. I agreed. I even suggested she use her own money to begin the planning since we were both so busy. She didn't hesitate for a second. She began spending fast on the dress, the venue, the bridal shower, broadcasting our happy news to friends, co-workers, relatives, and followers. Every time she updated me, I smiled, nodded, pretended to be thrilled. Even when her spending got reckless, I said nothing. I made her believe I trusted her completely, and she believed every word. Ever since that cruel fight, I had been planning my escape. Just days later, I booked a solo trip to Spain, a place I'd always wanted to visit. She had scoffed at the idea in the past, saying Spain wasn't worth getting excited over. She wanted Paris. She wanted Dubai. She wanted extravagance. First-class tickets, luxury hotels, curated photo ops for her social feed. That's why we'd never traveled anywhere. But this time, I chose for myself. I picked the dates, paid for everything up front, and told no one, except my father. I explained everything to him, that I needed out, that I was leaving the country, and I asked him to keep it quiet until I was already gone. He understood. After that, I visited my mother. I hugged her tight, told her I loved her, and said my goodbyes. Kathleen had no clue. To her, we were neck-deep in wedding planning. She believed she had everything under control, and that belief was exactly what I needed. The night before I left, I sent her one final message. Short, clear, final. I'm ending this relationship. Your constant disrespect and unreasonable behavior have made this impossible. I'm done. As soon as the message showed it had been delivered, I blocked her number and erased her contact from my phone. I knew if I gave her any opening, she'd come crawling back with fake tears and empty promises. I didn't want to hear it. By sunrise, I was on a plane. I won't say I was completely happy yet, but I was free, and that alone was everything. After a full week in Spain, I felt lighter than I had in years. No tension, no conflict, no mind games. Just silence, just freedom, just peace. There were no arguments, no emotional chaos, just tranquil mornings, good meals, and air that didn't carry the residue of stress. I hadn't been checking my phone much, but one afternoon, a message from my best friend lit up the screen. It read, "Hey man, what's going on between you and Kathleen?" I stared at it for a second, unsure whether he wanted a real answer or was just poking around. I replied, "Why do you ask?" That's when he told me she'd been bombarding his phone trying to find out where I was, wondering if he'd heard from me. She had just realized I'd blocked her. I let out a breath and typed back, "It's over." I ended it. His reaction was instant and full of disbelief. Even through the screen, I could feel his surprise. He asked what had happened, why I hadn't reached out to him first, and if there was still any chance I'd change my mind. That's when I decided to be honest. I told him exactly what had gone wrong, how things had quietly shifted until they no longer made sense, how Kathleen had made it a habit to put me down, how she mocked my background, constantly compared me to others, and only really paid attention when the subject was centered on her. At some point, I stopped recognizing myself when I was around her. He tried to be diplomatic, said maybe I'd misunderstood, maybe she didn't mean it that way. I let him say his piece, but I already knew I wasn't going back. I told him, the moment I sent that final message and blocked her, it felt like I could breathe again. I felt free, and that peace, after so long without it, told me everything I needed to know. With distance and time, I came away with 3 solid truths from that relationship. First, respect is essential. When you allow someone to cross your boundaries again and again without speaking up, they start to believe it's okay. A relationship that lacks mutual respect is like building a mansion on quicksand. It might look fine for a while, but eventually it crumbles. Second, real communication flows both ways. I didn't want someone who only talked. I needed someone who listened. Someone who could hold space for my struggles just like I had held space for hers. Not someone who offloaded everything on me and called it connection. And third, you can't let your worth hinge on someone else's validation. I stayed too long trying to make her see my value. But the truth is this. If you have to keep proving your worth to someone who refuses to recognize it, you're slowly eroding who you are. Walking away felt like I was finally stepping back into myself. That's where this story ends. If something in it spoke to you, drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for being here. If you appreciated this, there are plenty more stories like it on this channel. Until next time, take care of yourself, my friend.